Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the two-day conclave on universal ethics, perspective of emotional intelligence in education. Before I proceed any further, I would like to give a brief introduction of the organizers of this event. The first organizer of this event is Tibet House, the culture center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which was established in 1965. Tibet House was established by His Holiness the Dalai Lama with the vision of universal interdependence and the need to develop a sense of harmony and compassion as the basis of happiness for humanity and to preserve the rich culture of Tibetans from dying. Tibet House aims to bring together Buddhist masters and Tibetologists, people across different disciplines, students and practitioners, and the common man through its various programs and events. Tibet House is a library, a museum, various study programs on Buddhist philosophy, conferences on interdisciplinary subjects such as neuroscience and Buddhist psychology, quantum physics, spiritual ecology, and universal ethics. In collaboration with Tibet House, the second organizer for today's event is Center for Ethics and Values. Center for Ethics and Values is a non-religious, not-for-profit public service academic institution that addresses all aspects of human well-being. Ethics Center as Temple Center for Ethics and Values is not just an academic institution, but also a temple that propagates peace through ethics and values. For the last 8 years, CEV has conducted action programs aimed at improving people's lives and making the society a better place to live. From its powerful action programs for inner transformation to inspiring value-based social projects, professional development. This integral and all-pervasive approach has gained considerable momentum and recognition in its 8 international conferences on ethics and 6 volumes of International Journal of Applied Ethics. Along with international conferences, CEV takes pride in organizing an ethics Parliament every year since 2015, which calls over young individuals to discuss upon topics of civil interest, keeping ethics their sole motive and the purpose too at the same time. The Center, in course of achieving above objectives, has been collaborating with esteemed organizations like Baha'i House of Worship, Tibet House, YMCA, and Center for Peace and Spirituality, New Delhi. Due to the time constraint, I gave a brief introduction of both the organizations. For the detail, you have the program booklet with you and the brochures as well, so please refer to it. I would now like to request our panelists for the morning session to kindly lamp lighting. Please light the lamps. I would request the Director of Tibet House, Venerable Geshe Doji Damdila, Dr. T.K. Mishra, and Dr. Bumut Ringla. Yes, I would like to request Dr. Bumut Ringla and Venerable Geshe Doji Damdila to kindly take their respective seats on the dais. I will not take any further time since we are here to listen to our respective speakers. So without further ado, I would give a brief introduction of our first speaker, Venerable Geshe Dojit Amdullah, who is currently the director of Tibet House, New Delhi, the culture center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He travels widely within India and abroad to teach Buddhist philosophy, psychology, logic, and practice. He has written a number of papers for national and international conferences on topics such as the paradox of the brain and mind and ultimate reality according to Arya Nagarjuna. I would like to request Geshe-la to take the podium and give an opening on today's event.
Respected Dr. Bisering, the principal of the Dalai Lama College, Bangalore, and Dr. T.K. Mishraji, the director of the Center for Ethics and Values, Ramanujan College, and our invitees, particularly the participants for this program, and the guests, and they are also the students from Ramanujan College and other places as well. It is a great honor for Tibet House and the Center for Ethics and Values, Ramanujan College, that we are organizing this conclave. This is the second year of the program. So this is an ongoing program. So basically, we see that the universal ethics, the lack of which is responsible for all the problems in the world. So the first time I remember, His Holiness was in Mayo Clinic, Rochester, USA, and His Holiness was addressing a big gathering. In fact, all the staff, the medical experts, and the nurses, the doctors, and so forth. I think it was constituted about like 500 people there, and they requested His Holiness for a public address. And in the course of the discourse, during the questions session, the question was asked to His Holiness as to why. Number one, it was briefly touched as to how the relationship between the patients and the doctors is very important, pertaining to the patient's trust on the doctors. And then the question became even more deeper, that while the modern education, which is meant to give rise to the happiness of the world, the prosperity of the world, and the harmony of the world, on the contrary, the world is always seen declining, where the more terrorism is coming up, and corruption, gender discrimination, and all the undesirable things, they're coming up. So what could be the reason? This was the question asked to His Holiness. Then His Holiness, without any doubt, without second thought, and I was quite baffled. I was present there. His Holiness responded, that is all because of the modern education lacking the area to take care of the heart development. So this is from where all these problems start. So His Holiness says that the modern education, while it has a tremendous capacity to give rise to the brain development, to give rise to the science, technology, and nowadays the neuroscience, biotechnology is amazing, and physics going to such the development. For example, just recently, not here, in ISC, we had the talk by the brilliant, one of the world-renowned physicists, Professor, what is his name? Nicholas Gisson, and how he was presenting, which was totally in contrast with the Newtonian physics. It's just mind-blowing. And yet, the world is still in chaos. So much of pains, agonies, anxieties. So this is what not only the lay audience, but also the experts like physicists and the biologists, neuroscientists, the politicians, the business people, and the policymakers, they all go through the same the problems. So the question is, where do we go wrong, and how to address this question? So in this regard, His Holiness went back in time by saying that modern education, where one individual person spends his or her the prime of his life, say from age 2 to age like 20-something. So there, this number of years invested on the modern education. Yet, what modern education has to offer to you? Somebody who invested everything on this modern education, your time, resources, and the youth. So what have you learned from this modern education? So this is the question. So there His Holiness says, this modern education, which we inherited from the Britishers and from Americans, and everywhere in the world, we see that this is what is considered as education, modern education. And yet, it doesn't teach us. It doesn't teach us how to lead a very decent, how to lead a very compassionate, how to lead a very happy life. So this is what is lacking. So there, His Holiness says that now we need, while the modern education, it has its own strength, but we have to keep in mind that it is not complete. It is not erroneous. There's a different distinction. The distinction has to be made between the erroneous system and the incomplete system. So no doubt it is incomplete system, but for sure it's not erroneous. The brain development is crucially important, is very important, yet not at the cost of the heart development. So for that matter, the heart development is what is missing there. This is what is to be supplemented, and which His Holiness feels that it is so important that in the modern education system, the course on the heart development must be introduced. The next question, what kind of course to be introduced? This is the question. So we already had, if you look back, it was like 100 years, 200 years ago, we have all the religions there. And then looking back, like 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, we have what is known as the value education. We have what is known as the education of so basically to give rise to the values, to encourage values. So these were included as a part of the modern education. For example, in India, we did have those. But the question is how effective they are, this question. So with all these problems in our hand and our knowledge, going back in time, in the history of the humanity, we see that we can learn from this history of the humanity. Just look at the history and browse through the history of the humanity. We see where we went wrong and which time, and what is the root cause, what causes are responsible. All these we have to address. So with this, and from all these, taking all these as lessons, His Holiness finds us he came up with a very strong feeling that now it is important for the people to realize two things from the systems which provide us, which render us the value education, like religions. So there we see that the history tells us, history is a witness for us that while the religions have so many good things to offer to us, but it may not necessarily always bring harmony among the humanity. In the name of religion, all these splits, divides, and of wars, conflicts, and of course, and to the extent of, say, the communalism, all these things come into being in the name of the religion. Of course, it is not the mistake of the religions, of course, the people. But how can you demarcate? How can you distinguish the people who are involved with the religion and the religion? So the moment the religion is involved, people will be involved. When the moment the people will be involved, then the fundamentalism automatically comes into being. So for that matter, His Holiness feels it's so important that finally the purpose of the religions is to create a happy world family. And the world family, as long as we can create this, whatever means that we employ, we have to adopt that. So therefore, His Holiness feels that for the happy world, while taking all the good things, good sides of the religions, we can keep aside those things which divide the people. So what is that? This he calls as the values based on universal the acceptance, meaning any values that we see within the human beings, embracing which unites the people and bring harmony to the people and bring the contentment, discipline, and the proliferation and prosperity. All this is happening without the side effects. What is that? So this His Holiness calls us universal ethics. Ethics to be embraced not only by the religious people, but also by the non-believers alike. So that he calls as universal ethics. So I'm very happy that we have the Tibet House, of course, the Cultural Center of His Holiness Dalai Lama, and then in a very secular settings like universities and colleges, we have Ramanujan College. I was so fascinated. The first time I came to realize that it has a separate center for ethics and values, I was so fascinated. And then the Professor T.K. Mishra-ji, he came to me with his students and proposed if we can do something together. I was so touched to see that there is someone there in the secular setup, the university college, Ramanujan College. There's someone there who is taking the initiative. I was so impressed, and from that, that was last year. So we initiated the first conclave last year, and then we also have Dr. Bisering here, and some of you may be just wondering. Right? Okay, Dr. Bisering, many of you, after the meeting with her, for sure she will introduce herself as someone working in the Dalai Lama College, High Institute of the studies, under the name of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Bangalore. But she's the principal, and in fact, what I would say is that it's a great encouragement for all of us, inspiration for all of us to draw this inspiration from her, is that the Dalai Lama College, with such a beautiful infrastructure there in Bangalore, and if you ever happen to be in there, I would very much recommend you to visit the place there. It's a beautiful infrastructure, one. Then number two, that Dr. Bisering has been the one who is really on the ground, say from the inception of that institute as the college, a proper college. So she's working so hard for that. So imagine somebody doing from the scratch. How challenging would it be? And she's the one who's bearing all these challenges. And on top of that, since like 4 years ago, the first time when the college, the Dalai Lama College was taking shape, then Dr. Bisering took the initiative to start the universal ethics course there in the college. One. And number two, and you may be very happy to hear that Dr. Bisering was also my teacher when I was in school. My biology teacher, when I was in class 9, 10, 11, and class 11 I took my biology, and then class 12 I dropped, and then there's a small secret there, and Dr. Bisirla persuaded, or I say Dr. Bisirla somehow instigated my mathematics teacher. I was so fond of mathematics and physics, and my mathematics teacher to persuade this young boy to continue taking biology. Okay, so anyway, this was finished now. It was like 30 years ago. Okay, so we are very happy that we have the Dr. Bisimla as the keynote speaker. So why? Finally, the point is that unlike the conferences, on academic conferences, which have their own beauties, strengths, and the different facets. But here, universal ethics, the idea is slightly different. That not only that we know the importance of the universal ethics, the need to introduce universal ethics in the modern education system, the question is, how do we go about doing that? How do we go about doing that in different planes? For example, in a university, in a college setup, how do we do that? So Dr. Bismillah being the principal and I would say that the one who really is behind the college coming up so beautifully and so effectively coming up. So, and then having introduced the universal ethics course there. So let us listen to Dr. Bismillah, and then and more importantly, that all of us here who are somehow connected with this program, Universal Ethics Conclave, see how much we can learn from Dr. Bismillah, from her experience of this 5 years journey of the universal ethics introduction in our college. So, and the principal of Ramadan College, he is a little sick today. He had some eye problems, so because of which he could not join us. Otherwise, my deep admiration is with him as well. He's amazing. Of course, we will because this conclave is happening annual program. So for sure, we'll invite him, the respected principal of Ramadan College, to give more the lectures for us in the future. And from this to summarize a little bit of what we are supposed to be doing from this, and not only this conclave, but each of us, what should we be doing is, number one, what values to be introduced? What values to be introduced? One, absence of which or lacking of which the world crisis which been experienced since World War I, World War II, and so forth have been happening. One. Then number two is that after identifying what values to teach, what values to be introduced to us, to the students, to the public, the next question is how to teach this and who are going to teach this. Unlike, say, the teacher of mathematics or teacher of biology, physics, and so forth, so somebody in this area to teach the universal ethics, the person should actually embody these qualities. One, that the trainer or the teacher himself or herself should embody these qualities, universal ethics, in yourself. Then the next one is then how that is going to be imparted, and how that is going to be, that has to be institutionalized. Not just that, oh, there's a Ramadan College, there's one professor known as Professor T.K. Mishraji, and he's so actively doing that. Okay, this is one thing. And more importantly, how to institutionalize that so that there is a proper structure which makes sure that even after the Professor T.K. Mishraji, Dr. Bismillah, after like 40 years, 50 years, still the program is running so effectively, and that terrorism, corruption, all these things are going down now, right? And then the happiness is blossoming. So this is what we should be thinking of. The next question, how to do that? This is another area. And then in our own capacities, say for example, some of you may be students, some of you may be an individual, say a person as an individual, or as a private person, not really associated with any kind of universities, colleges, or any corporates, whatever. In your own capacity, what can we do? So I would quickly touch on this area because we have so many experts here to talk on the other areas. So the one request, of course, during the valedictory, I would be happy to share some of this with the audience. But one thing is that individually, each one of us, in our own capacities, see by browsing through the history of the humanity, so where were the mistakes? What mistakes went through, responsible for all these problems? One. Number two, if these mistakes were created by the people, not by the houses, not by the places, not by the flowers, not by the trees, not by the bombs, but by the people. What kind of thoughts went wrong there? What kind of thoughts? And do I have these thoughts in some degree, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%? Do I have these bad thoughts within me? Right? Say the feeling of chauvinism. For example, to give an example, feeling of chauvinism, that I'm more important than you, that boys are more important than girls, that my religion is more important than your religion, that my ethnicity is more important than your ethnicity, I'm the chosen person. So these thoughts is one of the poisons, the greatest of the poisons responsible for all these crises in the world, in the history of humanity. So do I have this, right? How do I check it when I interact with someone else? How does my mind react? So these will tell us, see how much we can, in our own capacity, somebody who took part in this conference, how we can reduce this element within us from 20% to 19%, to 10%. Like this, how to reduce this, see if this can be done. One. Number two, if you are 10%, if you have only 10%, 90% you're good. And if you're somebody else who is like 50% or 90% the problematic, then the question is how can I influence them? Right? It doesn't mean that we have to really go there in Jantar Mandar and then start the protest there. No, this is not the point. The point is how to influence others. Particularly, I would say that people who are in the policy-making bodies, people who are in the education, the institutes, like the principals, headmasters, then the students' representatives, the teachers, and so forth. And then the students, among the students, for example, the Prime Minister of India, 50 years later, 70 years later, no doubt the future Prime Minister is amongst very young, innocent boys and girls today. They are there with us. So if you influence them, these will decide the future. So this is how we can expect for the future. And then finally, within your own family, you can just talk about it. Oh, we had a conference on universal ethics. So this is said to be something a little different. So how can we actually think of changing the world by bringing about universal values such as love for others, openness, breaking the barrier of the identities? Right? So just talk about it. So if we take any of these steps, this conference is a success. Okay, so the Tibet House and the Center for Ethics and Values of the Ramanujan College, we are so happy that we invited so many scholars and the practitioners and the people in the respective disciplines to talk about and to enrich this program and to see where it is heading towards. So it is our joy to welcome you all for this program. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishila, for the wonderful welcome address and also garnishing this beautiful welcome address with some illuminating thoughts and some beautiful anecdotes aside of him, which we rarely get to see, you know what I'm saying. So I would like to request him to further extend the welcome by presenting our guests with the souvenirs, please. Can we please have Dr. T.K. Mishra, please. And Dr. B. Sringla. Thank you, Kishila. And I would also request everybody to pardon my ignorance, for I have addressed our keynote speakers for the inaugural session as panelists. So my humble apologies to both the speakers here. The next speaker for the session is Dr. T.K. Mishra. He did his PhD from Delhi School of Economics, is currently teaching as Associate Professor in the Department of Commerce, Ramanujan College, University of Delhi. With his 35 years teaching experience and 5 years as Director of Center for Ethics and Values, he has organized 5 international conferences on ethics and as editor published 6 volumes of International Journal on Applied Ethics. I would like to request him to come and give an overview of the conclave.
Vanshay Dandul, Dr. Sering, esteemed delegates, and my dear students from Ramanujan College. It's indeed a pleasure to talk about ethics amidst such an enlightened gathering. So this is a very important day today. For the first time, Prime Minister of India has said, which is the headline of all the newspapers today, in the case of Kathua case, he says, it is an internal failing of Indian society. First time he has admitted this. A very important statement. And this is the right time that we analyze what is that failing, internal failing. Well, I must congratulate Vanshay Dandul for having chosen his teacher to present the keynote address. This speaks of the amount of seriousness he has towards this subject. I am really overwhelmed by your such decisions. Sir, let me tell you that when we met first, in the first conclave, we did not abandon it. We thought of carrying it forward. And as a result, the MHRD gave us a Center for Teachers Learning Center, TLC. I'll mention it during my deliberations, to analyze over this subject. They were very much impressed that ethics is a necessity for the society, and if a college is focusing on that, okay, no problem. Funds, no problem. A very selected institute got this privilege all over the India. Ramanujan is one of them. And then we organized a 7 days training program where Dandul was very much invited and he spoke very well, and let me announce that he was at just the best speaker of that training program. All the teachers were very much impressed, very clear in every concept, message, everything. So today I want to tell you that why this conclave? Because conclave is much more serious deliberation than any seminar or workshop. It is a kind of samudra manthan. And I'm going to raise a very fundamental question before this August House, that we have to analyze that why if the unscrupulous elements, the irrational people, the unethical people, unethical preachers are effectively able to preach defiance, destruction, and create delusions in several minds, why can't rational, ethical teachers influence the mind of the youngsters? It is our failing indeed. And I want to ask that if they can teach the language of hate, why can't we teach the language of love? When I say Samudra Manthan, we have to realize why Danavas are becoming more effective than Devtas, the so-called Devtas. Are we failing in our duties? If you want a small child to give up playing with unsafe toys, you have to offer a better toy to play with. Immediately he will give up the other one. Are we in a position to offer them a better option? No. So this is a question before all of us, and at the end of the session we must come out with concrete solution that this is the reason why we are failing in our duties, and this is how we can become more effective as a teacher in the society. If a doctor is not able to cure a patient, do we blame patient? If we are not able to give a right kind of education to the society, who is to be blamed? These things we have to seriously ponder upon. When we talk of artificial intelligence, we have to see what is the difference between man and machine. Man is not only a means of production, but also end of production. It not only contributes to the act of production, but also enjoys the fruits of production. And man, unlike machine, is an appreciating asset. Any sophisticated machine has to depreciate. But man, with the amount of knowledge he is gathering, his value increases. He goes up to CEO and whatnot. Well, everyone is hungry for power. Women, youth, any leader. I really appreciate someone who said that power is needed to harm others, otherwise love is enough. This power, teacher never enjoyed magisterial power, yet he commanded much higher power than a magistrate. A student would like to confront a policeman, but he would never confront a teacher. That was the stature of a guru. Why have we come down? Essentially because we have joined a competition, which guru, a teacher, was never part of competition. Secondly, people used to come to guru for some key, some solutions to the problem, existing problem. Now this guru used to come out of experiential learning. We used to comprehend the problems, get inside, and then find solution and tell the students. How many of us are doing this job? Let us try to understand this vital problem. Why we are losing grounds, legitimate grounds. Well, we have so many things to say and ponder upon. But the most important is that, the process that we are adopting while teaching. Are we able to develop followership qualities among students? How would they follow us? Arjuna would not have won the war of Mahabharata had he not been an ardent follower of Lord Krishna. Are we supporting our arguments with the help of scriptures? Lord Hanuman is worshipped more than Lord Ram. Followership qualities. Eklavya, Karna, all have been a good follower, but are we able to develop these qualities among students? And then we are saying that the students are not listening. We have to make sure that if we are teaching, are they listening? So many things. We are losing our position in the society, and in order to restore that, we have to discuss these things with the stakeholders, with the conscious people like Tibet House. And finally, let me tell you, I do not believe in discussing things in abstraction, in isolation. The deliberation of this will go on further to materialize. I have talked to some other central university. I think FMS is coming. I'll talk to the Dean FMS also, and Tibet House together. We are going to talk on spirituality. Role of spirituality in formal education directly. Why to discuss things here and there, ethics and values, directly on spirituality. We are going to do that. I am indeed very thankful to Tibet House and Mr. Dorji. Tremendous amount of seriousness you have over this subject, and this is the need of the hour. And I'm really very happy to see all these students. I have aroused the interest of among the students that generally we blame parents, we blame teachers, but the students, when you say that you are matured, when you join a college and you are grown up enough, then you should be in a position to educate your parents also. Don't just shift your blames to the other part of the society, and you are also very much integral part of the society. So if you think you are very wise enough, in other things you don't ask your parents. So many things, making love affairs and everything, you don't ask them. But in this, you backtrack, you withdraw yourself that I am a child, and you start talking about sanskar and things like that. No. You talk to your teachers, come out with solution, convince your parents if they are wrong at some times. Sometimes parents are also at wrong. But you should not, withdraw from the ethical obligation of educating your parents also. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mishra. A I would quickly give a brief introduction of our next keynote speaker, Dr. Bomut. She did her PhD in education from University of Virginia, USA. She was an elected member of Tibetan Parliament, Utsang, from 2011 to 2016. She was also the former president of Tibetan Women's Association and is a member of drafting committee of Basic Education Policy, Central Tibetan Administration. She is a recipient of 25 years of service award to the cause of education by Department of Education, CTA, in 2017. At present, she is the principal of the Dalai Lama Institute for Higher Education, Bangalore. Ma'am, please take the podium.
I think I have a slide that I wanted to share. Is it? Thank you for this introduction, and thank you for the introduction, and this one. Yes, that's it. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Once again, thank you for the introduction. And Honorable Keshe Dojiramdula and Dr. T.K. Mishraji and all the panelists and the students who are present here. I'm honored to be here today, partaking in this very important conclave organized by Tibet House and by Ramanujan College Center for Ethics and Values, Delhi University. Spaces like this, where we discuss and exchange universal ethics, which is key for the robust shared moral conception for our communities. I thank the entire team who worked to put this important conclave together. This is need of the hour, I would say. So I would go back to my early day, just a personal story that I wanted to share with you all. Many moons ago, I was a new college graduate. I have a typical Tibetan refugee story. My parents were farmers in Tibet, fled in 1959 to India, and were amongst the first settlers who came to Bailakuppe in Karnataka state in the early 60s. Though no one in my family had ever attended school before, my parents valued our education, and being the oldest, I became the first college graduate in the family. Eager to start a good job, paying job, and helping my parents out at home with my younger siblings, I had accepted a teaching post in the Center School for Tibetans in Bailakuppe. That same year, TCV had attained affiliation. So if I share you the exact year, it was in 1977. And Chizim Pamela, who was heading the Tibetan Children's Village, were seeking qualified teachers to come and teach in TCV. And when I met her, she asked me to come and teach in TCV. And I was torn between accepting the position at TCV and staying with my family and starting work at what was a better paying job at that time. I consulted my father, and without even the slightest hesitation, he told me that I should absolutely go to TCV and teach there. So he said, "You obtained your education by the grace of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and it is now your moral responsibility to go and teach the Tibetan refugee children in Dharamsala." And they have managed so far pretty well by the grace of His Holiness, and they will continue to do so. So I should not stay back to take care of just the family. So my story is a typical story of my generation. Thousands had showed up to serve at the Tibetan Children's Village School and various other nascent exile institutions. We were bounded by a shared sense of ethics and morals that were deeply rooted in Shenpen, others before self, which became TCV's motto and continues to be its guiding principle to this day. So the Dalai Lama Institute for Higher Education is an undertaking of Tibetan Children's Village. So the TCV has started with the nursery, and today it has completed with a college. Humankind have made tremendous progress. Smartphones are ubiquitous in numerous ways. Artificial intelligence, I think one of our speakers here, former speakers, mentioned about that, have seeped into our daily lives. Mass media is incessantly demanding our attention. We obsessively check our social media accounts. Unquestioningly, there is a wealth of information available on our fingertips, but ironically, it has created a paucity of our time. When we click on the apps, the information that appears on the screen is matched with one's likes, interest, search results, creating what has been popularly called as the bubbles. We tend to let this self-centered digital world gradually pervade our real world. Instant gratification is the norm, and we are becoming slaves to our own unruly emotions that consequently have become a source of deep unhappiness and discontentment in our lives. This self-centeredness leaves little room for one to develop her or his emotional intelligence, which teaches us about self and social awareness. Social awareness, it is characterized by qualities such as empathy, adaptability, accountability, and positivity. It provides ample room to discern other people's feelings and emotions. In short, it helps us provide thoughtful responses instead of senseless reactions. The benefits of such mindful practice are numerous, and the findings are backed by the sciences as well. Therefore, there is a grave urgency, unlike ever before, to mainstream secular ethics in education institutions at every level. We have to equip our children with tools like emotional intelligence if we are to make the world a better and a happier place to live. If we are a society can take emotional accountability to provide our children a holistic education, one that teaches them not just to read, write, and do math, but an education that really augments them to be the best versions of themselves. We have to expand the way we view the role of education institutions, because they have the essential task of molding our children's thoughts and eventually how they will navigate the world. I have much faith and hope in this generation and future generations, coupled with meaningful application of science, technology, communications. There is a lot of good we can accomplish. I'm pleased to share, as it was mentioned by Geshe Dorje Damdula, who has been my student 30 years ago. Now I am his student of Buddhist philosophy and Tongling meditation practice. So in 2013, we launched a secular ethics course at the Dalai Lama Institute for Higher Education. We came up with a curriculum that is still evolving, I must say. It is still emerging, and we have come up with these materials, the textbooks, the supplementary reading, the method of teaching, and a lot of information that we have taken out of our commentary, beginning from 2nd century, the great scholar Nagarjuna to present His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And in drafting, it is still in the draft form, we are using it. We teach this package in our institute. It is a 4-credit-hour course. And under the specialized program, the credit is recognized by the University of Mysore. And we are still, I believe that this is still an emerging curriculum where a lot of input, I'm hoping, will get from great scholars such as you all who are gathered here, who are committed in, mainstreaming secular ethics education in the educational sectors, institutions. So I feel very honored and fortunate to be invited here today. Not so much as the keynote speaker. I was a little hesitant when I was asked to be the keynote speaker, but with the hope that I will be learning and getting a lot of input from the scholars here who will be doing presentations. I accepted the offer, so I feel a little hesitant still about being the keynote speaker amongst such great practitioners and scholars. But since we are in the same field and we have the same commitment, I feel that there is a lot we can do together in the coming years. So I would again extend appreciation to Geshe-la for having me here. And the book souvenir that I just received from the organizers, this is the core textbook for our secular ethics course down in the institute. And we also have supplementary reading, the ethics for the new millennium, and a lot of other information we are collecting still, and hope there will be input from many of you who are here today. And I would like to leave you all with a short story. Again, I began with my own story. I would like to end with a story again that Geshe Thupten Chimbala shared in his phenomenal book, A Fearless Heart, a book I highly recommend to those who haven't read it. It is about the Tibetan flutist, Ngawan Kechok. The Tibetan flutist Ngawan Kechok once suffered a terrible car accident on his way to visit his father in Orissa, Tibetan settlement in eastern India. It was on the eve of the Tibetan New Year, and Ngawan was traveling with his son and niece. The car they were in was hit by a truck, killing the driver and seriously injuring the niece, who's come to her injuries in the hospital after a few days. Her son was barely injured, and Ngawan Kechok himself was severely injured, and he had to go through lots of serious surgeries, and he stayed months in the hospital. So he told Geshe Thupten Chimbala that he told Geshe-la that it was his Tonglen practice. Tonglen practice is active compassion meditation practice. Right, Geshe-la? So this practice that sustained him in the initial weeks of serious pain and fear of not knowing if he would live. He would spend hours as he laid in bed, thinking of countless others who are suffering physical injury, emotional trauma, and fear. He would breathe in their suffering and breathe out his compassion and concern for their well-being. Now recovered completely from the accident and has been able to resume his career as a flutist. And I feel very proud that the same Tonglen meditation practice teaching was given by Keshila, again, Keshi Toji Temblila, to our students and staff members, since he is a regular visiting scholar to the Institute. And we have taken his help for so many events. And we regularly have joint sessions between the neuroscientist Professor Sion Raman and Keshi Toji Temblila. So they would team teach and talk about neuroscience, and Keshila would talk about science of mind. So, map of mind. When I first met him, after I took charge of the Dalai Lama Institute, I came to see him and we were discussing, and in the process he mentioned about map of mind. Immediately it caught my mind and my attention, and I told him, Keshila, you have to come down and teach this to our students. We have such deep and valuable information already in our text, in our culture, in our system, and the youth needs to know this so that they will pay attention and they will feel proud of who they are. Because many a time I know me growing up in India as a refugee, in the beginning, were not very confident of yourself. You always wondered about your own identity, about your own status in this world. Until, now, after His Holiness's continuous teaching, continuous traveling, and, educating the world. And in the process, we also learned what we have, what treasures we have, and what we could do and share with the rest of the world so that we benefit from each other. And now we very proudly can say that I'm a Tibetan. When I was young, I have to admit here, when I was going to school and early college life, people will mistake me for Nepali, or some might say you're a Japanese, or some might say you are Chinese. To every question, I used to say yes, because I wasn't sure about my own identity. Now, today, if anybody asked any Tibetan youth, whether they were Chinese or anybody else, I can very confidently say that they'll say, no, I'm a Tibetan. So we are very grateful. We are very fortunate in many ways. Though we have lost our country, we are fortunate in many ways that we have such a leader that has given back our identity, given the sense of being in us. Yes, thank you. So a lot of, when I was in the US, Cuban people, there were over 1 million Cuban refugees in United States. And they said, you have a great leader. Maybe, they were doubting whether we are following him 100% or not. But they said, we have the people, but we lack leader. That's why they don't have such well-established system as we have. We are only about little over 1 lakh Tibetans in the diaspora. But we have a system all around the world that we have become so visible that when we tell people that we are only a little over 1 lakh people outside Tibet, they get shocked. How come you have system that is on par with any independent country. So this is all because of the grace of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So this secular ethics course, when I first took charge of Dalai Lama Institute in 2012, it was in August. Already in October, I was looking for somebody who will help us draft this curriculum. Because I felt, attempts have been made elsewhere, but when the administration changes, continuity becomes difficult. And I thought that Dalai Lama Institute, being a Tibetan institute, we have every scope, every chance of continuing with this program. Like Geshe-la said, 30 years down the line, it should be still there, functioning, blossoming, and making differences in the lives of people in the world. So this is definitely something we can do as Tibetans, being a Tibetan institute. And now we see so many other people from varied backgrounds of their profession are looking into the ways or means to introduce secular ethics education. And I feel that what is lacking is teacher education now. Yes, teacher education. And teacher education is something that we have to put together, like Professor T.K. Mishra said, how, when, where. Even Geshe-la mentioned about this. So I hope that the scholars here today, when you have your panel discussions, I hope that you'll come out with better strategies, how to actually mainstream secular ethics education in our systems, in our educational institutions. So, yeah, I'm short of time, I think. I was hoping that it is not going to be so strict. Anyway, so I want to end with this saying from the great, renowned Brazilian educator, Paulo Freire. Education does not transform the world. Education changes people, and people change the world. So we, as groups here, will able to make some changes in the lives of people who are coming up to be the future leaders, better ethical leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bomusringla. And I apologize for being a little strict for Not at all, ma'am. We seem to be running out of the scheduled time, so I apologize. And I once again would like to thank our keynote speakers, Dr. T.K. Mishra, Dr. Bomusringla, and Venerable Geshe Dojit Abdullah. With this, we come to an end of the inaugural session. The tea will be served, tea and refreshment will be served outside. We have tried to squeeze the time from 20 minutes down to 15, so kindly try to be back after 15 minutes. And for your information, the washroom is on your right to the exit, and the water will be on the left to your exit. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.